Monday morning always followed the same rhythm in our home, a rhythm that once brought me comfort, but now, looking back, feels more like the ticking of a time bomb. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in our master bathroom, smoothing the lapel of my sea green blazer, dabbing a final touch of matte lipstick onto my lips. My reflection was composed, professional, unfazed. At 38, I looked exactly as I was meant to look, the poised deputy director of a private cosmetic clinic in downtown Chicago. Behind me, the software of the espresso machine hummed through the penthouse, mingling with the buttery scent of imported croissants and Marcus's cologne lingering in the hallway. Marcus was already at the kitchen island when I walked in, flipping through news on his tablet. Crisp white dress shirt, luxury timepiece, that glow from weekly tanning sessions he never missed. Picture perfect, as always. "Good morning," he said, not looking up. "Got your coffee just how you like it." "Thanks," I replied, pouring the brew into my favorite porcelain cup. My schedule was full. 3 surgeries, 2 meetings, and a vendor visit for the new laser machine. Marcus finally glanced up. "I might be late tonight. Emergency consult came through." I nodded. Lately, he'd been late often. But then again, so was I. In our world, being busy was currency. The long hours, the formal kisses, the weekend getaways to our Lake Forest property. It was the quiet kind of life people envied. Stable, respectable, predictable. And I never thought to question it until that morning. As Marcus left for the clinic, I noticed something, a faint smudge on his collar. Lipstick, not mine. My pulse barely flinched. We'd been at a company dinner the night before. Cheek kisses, greetings, champagne. It could have been nothing or everything. We'd been married for 13 years, long enough for passion to settle into routine, long enough for a kind of silence to form between us, comfortable, well-mannered, even elegant in its detachment. And I had accepted it. We were a power couple. That's what everyone said. We ran a successful clinic together, lived in a magazine-worthy home, vacationed in St. Bart's. I thought we'd reached the kind of equilibrium people strive for after the fire cools. Something mature, something dignified. But the truth is, you never really know how fragile something is until it cracks. That morning, I drove to work in silence, city skyline gliding past my window like a memory I wasn't part of anymore. At the clinic, I stepped into the marble lobby, greeted by the familiar scent of antiseptic and eucalyptus diffusers. Nurses nodded respectfully. Admin staff handed me the day's charts. Everything functioned like a symphony I had conducted for years. By 9 a.m., I was already in the boardroom reviewing protocols with department heads, my voice steady, directives clear. Efficiency had always been my language. I was the one who remembered anniversaries, compliance dates, staff birthdays, licensing deadlines. Marcus? He was the artist, the face, the charm. By noon, I'd seen 6 patients, signed off on payroll, and reviewed the equipment shipment from our South Korean supplier. Control was my comfort zone. Predictability was my defense. So when the receptionist knocked on my door around 2 p.m., her voice uncertain, her face a little pale, I didn't flinch. "Dr. Caldwell, there's a young woman here. She says it's personal and urgent. She refuses to leave." I raised an eyebrow. Visitors without appointments were rare in our clinic. I motioned for her to show the girl in after I'd finished with my last patient. A few minutes later, the door opened and everything changed. She walked in like she owned the room. Young, maybe 24. Perfectly styled blonde waves. Manicured nails. A dress that whispered money. A presence that screamed purpose. "Are you Dr. Victoria Caldwell?" she asked, voice smooth but cold. "Yes," I said, gesturing toward the chair. "How can I help you?" She sat, crossed her legs elegantly, and locked eyes with me. "My name is Alina Monroe. I'm here to talk to you about your husband." And just like that, the air shifted. The bomb had started ticking. At first, I thought something had happened to Marcus. An accident, a crisis. My heart skipped as I imagined a call from the hospital, a tragedy, something too horrible to say over the phone. But then she smiled, that sharp, feline smile people wear when they know they're about to ruin you. "Something did happen," she said lightly. "Your husband's been sleeping with me for over a year, and I'm pregnant." The words hit me like a steel rod to the chest. Not a scream, not a gasp, just silence. My throat dried instantly. The sterile air of my office suddenly felt too thick to breathe. "I'm sorry," I heard myself say, though I wasn't sure who I was apologizing to, her, Marcus, or myself for being so blind. "I figured it was time to be honest," she continued, leaning back in the chair like she was chatting about weather. "Marcus always says your marriage is just for show now, that you're more like business partners than anything else. But I wanted to see for myself. He says he stays because he's afraid of change. But he loves me, not you." I studied her carefully, searching for any crack in her performance, any twitch of doubt or vulnerability. Nothing. Just icy confidence, like she'd already won. And maybe she thought she had. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice calm. Years of dealing with emotional patients had trained me well. Show no reaction. Give them nothing to feed on. "Since last spring," she said, like it was a sweet memory. "We met at a medtech conference. I was modeling for a cosmetic laser demo, and he said I was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. He kept coming back to talk to me. Soon we started meeting for coffee. Then dinners. Then, well, you can guess the rest." I could. I didn't want to, but I could. He rented an apartment in River North just for us. Said he needed a space to think. Said with you, there was no passion left. That you two hadn't been intimate in months. That you'd grown cold. I stared at her. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I did. Marcus had changed, slowly, subtly. His late nights, the gym routine, the new cologne. He started taking vitamins for energy, bought new underwear I'd never seen before. And I hadn't asked. I'd told myself we were just older, focused, driven. "Does he know you're pregnant?" I asked finally. "Not yet," she said, resting her hand delicately on her stomach. "I thought it'd be better to come to you first, out of respect." Respect. She said it like a challenge, as if she expected me to fall apart, to cry, to beg her not to take him. Instead, I tilted my head slightly. "And what exactly do you want from me?" "A divorce," she said simply. "Quiet, clean, no drama. He'd never leave you on his own. He's too polite, too guilty. But if you let him go, he'll finally be free to be with me, with our child." She smiled like she'd just offered me a promotion instead of a demand. "You've had him for 13 years. Isn't it time to let someone else have a chance?" The nerve of her, the audacity, but I didn't flinch. "Thank you for your honesty," I said, coolly standing up. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have patients waiting." Alina blinked, clearly caught off guard. She'd expected tears, a slap, a screaming match. Not this. "Wait, aren't you going to say anything?" I said thank you, I repeated. "That's all for now." She stood, flustered, her posture faltering for the first time. "What are you going to do?" I looked her square in the eye. "Think." She left, and when the door clicked shut, I locked it behind her, sat down at my desk, and just stared. Outside the window, the world moved on. Cars, sirens, clouds, sunlight. Everything unchanged. But my world had just imploded. I felt no tears, no rage, just a cold clarity spreading through me, the kind I only felt before high-stakes surgeries. My breathing slowed. My fingers stopped trembling. A switch had flipped. Marcus had broken something that could never be mended. And now I was going to make sure he knew exactly what that felt like. I sat alone in my office for a long time after Alina left, the silence pressing against my skull like a migraine that hadn't arrived yet. No tears came, no phone calls, No impulsive confrontations. Instead, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a pen, the one I always used for post-op notes. Smooth ink, thin line, controlled, and I began writing. Not a letter, not a journal, a list. Every moment that suddenly made sense now. Every sign I had ignored. The gym membership that came out of nowhere. The new brand of cologne with a name I couldn't pronounce. The silk ties I didn't buy. The late nights. The way he started locking his phone. The distance in his kiss. The excuses. The vitamins. The shift in how he touched me. Clinical, brief, performative. I listed them like symptoms. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? A disease. Infidelity was just a late-stage symptom. The real pathology ran deeper, through years of emotional erosion, quiet detachment, and the arrogance of a man who thought I'd never notice. Or worse, that I'd never fight back. When the list was done, I closed my notebook and looked around my office. The air smelled of lemon disinfectant. My diplomas lined the wall. A painting of Lake Michigan hung above the bookshelf, calm and blue. This wasn't going to be a breakdown. It was going to be a procedure. The first step? Call Anthony Delgado. He answered on the first ring. Vic? Everything okay? No, I said calmly. I need your help. He paused. You want to meet? Tonight, 8 o'clock. Café Loose. He hesitated for just a moment, probably reading between the lines. I'll be there. I hung up and returned to the rest of my day like nothing had happened. I finished seeing patients, took a call with the suppliers, and smiled at nurses in the hallway. I kept my tone level, my eyes focused. I even laughed once when someone made a bad joke in the break room. But inside me, something tectonic had shifted. When I arrived home that evening, Marcus wasn't there yet. Typical. Emergency consult, probably. Or surgery went long. I walked past our spotless kitchen, poured myself a glass of red wine, and opened my laptop at the marble counter. I needed information. The apartment Alina mentioned? River North. That narrowed it down. I opened property records, searched rentals in the area. Nothing directly linked to Marcus, but that didn't surprise me. If he was smart enough to cheat, he was smart enough to cover his tracks, which is why I needed Anthony. At 7:50, I arrived at the cafe. The lights were low, the scent of espresso and cedarwood cologne hovering in the air like memory. Anthony was already there, waiting at a corner table, his tailored suit impeccable, his dark eyes watching the door. You look different, he said as I sat down. I feel different, I replied. Marcus is having an affair. She's pregnant. She came to my office today. He didn't speak right away. He just exhaled sharply and signaled for 2 espressos and something stronger. You want a divorce? I want intel, I said. I want to know everything. What he's hiding, where the money is, if he's trying to sell the clinic. I want it all. Anthony gave a slow, deliberate nod. Then let's begin. The next morning, I was already dressed and out the door before the sun had cleared the horizon. I didn't sleep much. I didn't need to. I had a mission now, and clarity works better than caffeine. As the city yawned awake, I drove to a part of town I hadn't been to in years, quiet, residential, lined with modest row houses and discount clothing stores. It was where Alina's parents lived. She'd mentioned it once, offhand, as if she didn't expect me to remember. But I had, because I always remembered everything. I parked a block away and waited across the street, sipping lukewarm coffee from a paper cup. At 8:42 a.m., a woman stepped out of the building. Late 50s practical coat, neatly pinned hair, a face that looked too kind to have raised someone like Alina. I followed her, not closely, just enough to see her walk into a small children's boutique tucked between a laundromat and a bakery. The sign said, Little Steps locally owned since 1993. The storefront was lined with pastel onesies, baby shoes, plush toys arranged in careful symmetry. I gave it another 10 minutes, then walked in. She was behind the register, organizing receipts. She looked up and smiled. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "Hi," I said, offering a warm smile. "You're Alina's mother, right? I'm Victoria. I work with her sometimes. She asked me to stop by. She's not feeling well this morning." The woman blinked, then nodded slowly. "Yes, I'm Tamara. Alina didn't mention anything. Is she okay?" "Oh, she'll be fine. Just overwhelmed, I think. You know, it's a complicated time in her life." Tamara tilted her head, concern etched into her forehead. "Complicated how?" I dropped my voice to a hush, scanning the empty shop. "It's not my place to interfere, but I'm worried. She's been seeing someone, a married man, a doctor. She thinks he's going to leave his wife for her, but I let the sentence hang unfinished." Tamara paled. "Married?" "I'm sorry," I said gently. "I thought you knew." Her hands tightened on the counter. "I assumed the gifts, the trips?" I thought she was modeling. "I didn't know," she said. "She was working hard." "She is," I said quickly, "but she's also young and trusting. And men like that," I paused. "They say a lot of things they never mean, especially when they have wives and reputations to protect." Tamara sank into a stool behind the register. Her face had gone slack. She always believed people too easily. "I just didn't want her to get hurt," I added. "Maybe if someone close to her said something gently, she might reconsider where this is going." Tamara nodded slowly, the weight of a mother's dread settling across her shoulders. "Thank you for telling me." I smiled. "Of course. She deserves more than being someone's secret." When I walked out of that store, I didn't feel victorious. Not yet, but I felt the first stone fall from the tower Alina had built for herself. A single tremor, but the kind that precedes a collapse. Later that day, I pulled out my phone and used the voice modulator Anthony had recommended. I dialed Alina from a blocked number, lowering my voice to something older, raspier. "Hello." "Hi, dear. I'm a neighbor of Marcus Caldwell from the Lake Forest house. I just wanted to let you know his wife is planning to visit the property tomorrow. She's bringing a friend to see it. Said they might be interested in buying something similar. Just thought you should know." There was a pause on the other end. "His wife?" "Yes, dear. Lovely woman. They've been married for years. Such a sweet couple. Always so happy together." I hung up, and then I waited. That evening, I met the man who would become my scalpel. Peter Samuels wasn't flashy. He didn't wear dark sunglasses or speak in riddles. He was a quiet, meticulous ex-detective with pale eyes and a voice like gravel. Anthony had recommended him, and the moment I shook his hand, I knew he understood what I needed. "I don't want drama," I told him. "I want clarity, movements, locations, financial traces, photos if you can get them. But most of all, I want him to start feeling watched." He raised an eyebrow. "You want him to know?" "Not immediately," I said, "but eventually. I want that pressure to build slowly, like a fever." He nodded. "Then we'll do it right." The next morning, I resumed my role as the unaware wife. Marcus returned home late again, shirt rumpled, eyes slightly bloodshot. He smelled of his usual cologne layered over something softer, like hotel soap. "Emergency, consult," he muttered as he kissed the top of my head. "Didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't," I said quietly and offered him a cup of tea. "Rough case." "Yeah, complicated." We sipped in silence. I watched him over the rim of my cup, wondering if he could sense it, how different I was now. How the woman across from him was no longer the one he married. The next few days were routine on the surface, but beneath them, I was watching everything. Peter sent regular updates. Marcus was indeed visiting a condo in River North, apartment 105, where Alina often arrived half an hour after him. The building had no doorman, which made surveillance easy. They spent hours inside, curtains drawn, emerging only after sunset. One afternoon, I drove downtown and asked to view apartment 107, just across the hall from theirs. A different floor plan, slightly smaller, but with perfect line of sight to the entrance of 105. The agent didn't ask many questions. I signed a 6-month lease, paid 2 months up front, and walked out with keys that felt like hand grenades. From there, I had everything I needed: visibility, timing, access. Later that week, Peter delivered his first batch of photos. Marcus and Alina entering the condo. Marcus carrying takeout. Alina in sunglasses, glancing behind her shoulder. And then the money. Transfers are clean, Peter said. Monthly payments to Alina under the name consulting fees. Plus a separate bank account in the Caymans. He's been moving funds gradually. Over $400,000 so far. Anything on the clinic? Peter hesitated. That's trickier. The assets are mostly in his name, but Anthony might be able to dig into licensing angles. You're still listed as co-founder in several early documents. I nodded. Good. Let's keep digging. As I gathered evidence, I also began planting seeds of paranoia. I had Peter assign one of his junior agents to trail Marcus, a little too visibly, just enough to be noticed in reflections, in the corner of a mirror, behind a parked car. Let him wonder if he's being followed. Let him feel the weight of eyes he can't see. He'd chosen deceit. Now I'd give him the consequences, and it had only just begun. By the end of that week, Marcus was a different man. He started checking the windows before leaving, glancing over his shoulder in elevators, rereading text messages before replying. One evening, I caught him staring into space while holding his fork midair, his plate untouched. You okay? I asked gently. He blinked, like I'd pulled him out of another dimension. Yeah, just tired. You've been working too much. I know. He was unraveling. At the same time, Alina was slipping. Peter had eyes on her, too. She wasn't strutting in heels anymore. She was slumping in oversized hoodies and skipping her modeling gigs. She'd been seen crying outside the condo. Twice. She tried to visit Marcus at the clinic and was turned away by reception. The best part? She thought it was because of me, that I was still the one standing between her and the life she wanted. She didn't know Marcus had already begun to resent her. She didn't know I had made him feel like I still adored him, like I still trusted him completely. Want to get away next weekend? He asked one night, scrolling absently through Airbnb listings. To the lake house? He nodded. Just us. I smiled. I'd love that. 2 days later, Anthony called me. We have something, he said. Big. What is it? Marcus filed paperwork to sell the clinic. The buyer is an offshore holding company registered in Belize. On the surface, it looks like a merger, but he's trying to cash out quietly and disappear. My blood went cold. What's the timeline? 3 weeks. If it goes through, he walks away with everything. Clinic, property, the bulk of your joint finances. You get whatever's left. I stared out the window at the glittering skyline. I'd worked 15 years building that clinic. Licensing, branding, recruiting the medical board, lobbying for the surgical accreditations. And now, he wanted to vanish with it all? Then we don't have 3 weeks, I said. We have 1. Are you sure you want to go that route? Anthony asked. It's a point of no return. I passed that point the moment he made her believe I'd disappear quietly. That night, while Marcus showered, I sat in bed with my laptop and composed an anonymous email to the Illinois Department of Revenue. Attached were PDF scans Anthony had collected. Flag payments, offshore transfers, questionable consulting fees. Subject line: suspicious financial activity from Caldwell Surgical Aesthetics. I hit send and closed the laptop. Marcus came out minutes later, toweling his hair. Can't sleep. I'm okay, I said, patting the empty space beside me. He smiled, climbing into bed. You're my calm in the storm, you know that? I leaned into him, placing a kiss on his shoulder. Always. He held me. I held my breath. And together we lay in the dark. One of us dreaming of running, the other quietly closing every exit. Saturday evening arrived with an odd stillness in the air, as if the city itself was holding its breath. I had just finished a long shower when I heard music playing softly from the dining room. When I stepped out, I saw Marcus setting the table, candles lit, wine opened, the good plates we never used unless guests were over. "What's all this?" I asked, toweling my hair. "I thought we could have a real dinner. Just us. No distractions." I watched him pour wine with trembling hands. He looked pale, older, like he hadn't slept in days. A hollow version of the man I married. We sat down in silence, the flicker of candlelight dancing between us. He pushed his plate aside almost immediately. "Vic, I need to talk to you." I waited. He exhaled, long and hard, as if preparing for surgery without anesthesia. "I've been lying to you. About everything." I didn't respond. He continued. "Alina, the girl, it was a mistake. A stupid, reckless, unforgivable mistake. She told you she was pregnant." "Yes." She lied. He looked up and I saw a flicker of something real. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. I made her take a test. In front of a doctor. She's not pregnant. She never was. She just wanted to force my hand. And did it work? He swallowed hard. Almost. For a while I thought maybe I could run. Start over. I even filed paperwork to sell the clinic. "To an offshore company in Belize," I said, my voice steady. His eyes widened. "How do you?" "Don't." Silence fell over the room like snow. Thick, soundless, suffocating. "I was scared," he whispered. Everything was slipping. She was manipulating me. I felt trapped. Did you ever stop to think how trapped I felt? I said, "Building a clinic that's technically yours. Running a home while you played God in surgery suites. Believing we were partners while you plotted your escape." He stood suddenly, pacing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was lost. "You were greedy," I corrected, "and bored, and entitled enough to think I wouldn't notice." He paused, hands on his hips, head down. "I want a second chance," he said finally. "Please, let's fix this. I'll call off the sale. We'll go away. Start over." I got up from the table and walked to the window. The city glowed outside, clean, precise, distant. "You know what I've realized," I said quietly. "Our marriage didn't fall apart because you met someone else. It fell apart because you thought I wouldn't fight back. That I'd just accept your betrayal like I accepted your late nights and your half-truths. Like I'd keep smiling while you carved up our life. Vic, please, I'm filing for divorce on Monday." The words were calm, surgical. He froze. His mouth opened, closed. He looked like he might collapse. "Don't," I said, raising a hand. "Don't say you're sorry. You're only sorry because I wasn't who you thought I was." For the first time in our marriage, Marcus had nothing left to say. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need to hear anything more. 2 weeks later, the court hearing was swift. Marcus's lawyer tried to stall, citing reconciliation, therapy, emotional breakdowns, but I came prepared. Every financial transfer to Alina's name, the bank statements, the clinic's almost sale, even the apartment lease under his assistant's name, paid in cash, documented by my investigator. Marcus's face was ashen the entire time. He didn't contest the divorce. I walked out of that courtroom with full ownership of the clinic, half of our investment accounts, and exclusive rights to the downtown property we used as our primary residence. He kept the penthouse, which he couldn't afford without me and the guilt. But I wasn't done. I waited for the perfect opportunity. The one place where performance mattered most to Alina, a hospital internship mixer hosted by a prominent women's health foundation. She had spent weeks bragging on social media about her invitation, how it was going to open doors, how she would meet influential female surgeons, how people would finally take her seriously. The night of the event, I arrived in a sleek navy dress, my name printed on the guest list as a board member. When I saw Alina across the room, hair slicked back, dressed too short for the occasion, eyes scanning the crowd, I approached with a soft smile. She turned, startled. "Oh, hi," she said. Her voice faltered. "Hello, Alina. I wasn't sure you'd recognize me without the lab coat." She tried to recover. "This is a professional event. I don't think this is the place." "I agree," I interrupted, lowering my voice. "Which is why I find it fascinating that you listed a non-existent OBGYN internship on your resume, and that you used my husband's name as a reference without his consent. The Foundation's ethics committee will be interested." Her face went pale. "You think I wouldn't check?" I added, "This isn't about Marcus anymore. It's about you lying your way into rooms you're not qualified to be in." A nearby board member glanced over, catching bits of our conversation. I didn't need to raise my voice. The humiliation was quieter than a slap and far more effective. "I'm warning you," Alina hissed. "No, I'm warning you," I said. "Leave the medical field before someone sues you for impersonation. You won't get a second chance." She stormed off, heels clicking, eyes burning. And just like that, the fantasy she built on my name, my husband, my silence, shattered in front of everyone she tried to impress. Later that night, I stood outside the building, watching the city lights blur in the distance. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was clean. Marcus called twice that week. I didn't answer. I had one final meeting to attend with my lawyer. "I want to transfer ownership of the clinic into a trust," I told him. "For women, single mothers, survivors, people who've been made to feel small in rooms they helped build." He looked up. "You're sure?" "Yes," I said. "I'm done cleaning up after men who thought I'd never leave." A few months later, spring arrived in Chicago like a slow exhale. The air smelled cleaner. The city felt quieter, somehow, or maybe I was just finally still. The clinic, now renamed the Caldwell Women's Center, began offering free consultations twice a week. We partnered with shelters, clinics, even high schools. And every time I walked through its glass doors, I remembered who I was before Marcus, before Alina, before the betrayal. Just a young girl who wanted to help women feel safe in their own skin. One afternoon, I was in my office when a knock interrupted the soft music playing on my speaker. My assistant peeked in. "There's a young woman here asking for you. Says she doesn't have an appointment, but she looks like she needs to talk." I nodded. She came in slowly, early 20s, nervous. Her hands trembled as she sat down. "I'm sorry to come without a referral," she said. I think I might be pregnant, and I don't know what to do. My boyfriend left. I haven't told anyone." Her eyes were glassy. I reached for the tissue box. "You're not alone," I said. "Not here." We talked for almost an hour. I didn't rush her, didn't interrupt, just listened like no one had ever really done for her before. When she left, she hugged me, tight, desperate. I stood by the window for a long time after that, watching her disappear into the crowded street. And something inside me shifted, not in pain, not in grief, but in recognition. I had come full circle. Marcus eventually moved to another city. I heard through colleagues that he tried opening a new practice, but it never really took off. Alina faded into digital silence, not a single trace left on the hospital site. Not even on LinkedIn. Good. Some people try to destroy others as a way of building themselves. But the truth is, you can't build anything real on lies. Not a clinic, not a reputation, not a relationship. I didn't need revenge. Not anymore. I needed peace. And I found it in my work, in the quiet moments between patients, in the softness of healing. There are women like me everywhere. Sharp, steady, resilient. Women who build entire lives around others, only to watch those lives be hollowed out by betrayal. But we rise. We rebuild. Not for them. For us. That's what no one teaches you when you're young. That survival isn't enough. You have to live. Out loud. With clarity. With boundaries. With your name written on everything you've built. Not hidden behind someone else's. And that's exactly what I've done. I no longer look over my shoulder. I no longer second-guess my worth. I no longer wear silence like a second skin. My name is Dr. Victoria Caldwell, and I'm not the woman behind the man anymore. I'm the woman who walked away and never looked back.